and thank you for joining us today on Polywine, where we like to take a deep dive into stories pulled from the media and have a fun time while breaking it down. I'm Jillian, and let's get into it. And thank you for coming back to join us for part two of our interview with Nate Starck. Enjoy. We were talking about your situation with intervention and kind of jumping off from there. So please continue.
Okay, so I mean, look, I getting ready to kind of leave the show. I was taking somebody to a treatment center, and while I was there, somebody came up to me and they said, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" And I'm like, "I don't know who this person is." Somebody they're there to get treatment, and they said, "I want you to know that your show saved my life." And I went, I mean, to hear something like that is pretty
Yeah.
crazy. And he goes, "I did not know how to tell my family about my problem. So I sat them down and I said, I need you to watch this show with me." And they watched Intervention, and a few days later they did an intervention on him and they got him to treatment. And sorry, I'm getting a little emotional, but uh, kind of a moment where I was like, wow, this is the power of TV. This is the
Yeah.
power of media, to be
Yeah.
able to, kind of really express to people, and teach people, inform people of of how you can, how there's a way forward, how to get out of that rut. And,
Right.
and I said it changed my life. It changed how I dealt with people in my family and how I dealt
Right.
with situations like, I mean, who doesn't know somebody in their life that is stuck in a, who doesn't know somebody who's, stuck in a rut or needs, is dealing with addiction or has other issues. And so,
Affects everyone.
I mean, I'm not saying that the techniques and intervention are correct and should always be used 100%, but there's a lot to learn from it. And,
Yeah.
and there's you need to be an expert if you're going to do this, with your with a family member. But,
Yeah.
but there is help out there for people, and there is a way forward, and life is, there's a better way for people who are dealing with addiction.
Yeah.
and
Just the
and
impact that show had.
yeah, I mean, it really did. It had a lot of impact on people, and not because of anything that we tried to do. We went out with like, wow, people are struggling with addiction, and why can't they change? That was how we started. Was why can't they change? And then it evolved into, they can't change because of it being a disease. They can't change because their family situation is not changing. They can't change
Right.
because, they are, because of the mental illness that they have right
Right.
now. And
Yeah.
a lot of these things can be addressed, and a lot of these things can be mitigated through the right help. I mean,
Something a while ago too. So and it just kind of pulled back the curtain of all the elements of that.
yeah, I mean, I laugh whenever we're filming, and I always make sure that phone numbers are blurred out, because and sometimes because people call numbers that they see on the screen.
Sure.
But
I'm sure.
I learned that because a treatment center that we filmed the door opening of a treatment center, and they said, we always know when when our show is airing, because our hotline is called constantly. And
Like, that is so funny. Well, not
and
funny
I
for that.
no, no, they're
Right.
like if we just had some warning, we would put some extra staff on. but it's great because they it just really shows again the power of media and content and getting people in. So this is what kind of hooked me into nonfiction television. Now, I will say that after intervention, I kind of was like, I'd like to do stuff that's a little bit more fun and a little bit more, has some humor elements in it. And
Right.
I think that I have found that. I've found adventure shows, I've found other engaging shows, but I've also done a lot of medical shows. I've done, I think I mentioned the LA County helicopter,
Right.
documentary I did at one point. I did My 600-Pound Life, and I've done shows about killers, and I've done shows about treasures, and, you know, and those are just, I find those interesting and fun, which again brings me back to what I love about nonfiction versus movies. Movies are and I love what movies are. They're an escape into a world that doesn't really exist. Even if
Correct.
you're talking about a true world, supposedly a history or whatever, that world does not exist.
Right.
Okay. What you're talking about, when you're doing reality television, even something that is contrived, like putting people on a desert island, that world exists. Those people exist. Those what they're doing, and the camera is, the producer's job is to basically be the viewer. Right? They're there to find the story that the viewer ask the questions that the viewer is asking. They're get the information out that the viewer is going to, want to know. And that's where those interviews come in because, and, the craft as a producer is getting into that head of the participant and, and getting them to express the things that we know that the viewer is going to ask.
Do you have a favorite kind of genre, type of style? Do you like doing more documentaries? Do you like doing stuff more at high adventure? Or do you like to mix it up more history?
Anything with history, I enjoy. I like things that it really doesn't matter to me as long as there's as long as there's a story, as long as there's an adventure component to it. Um, I like I like things that have, that really allow you to kind of get into the minds of the people that we're following. That's what I like, and that's what I enjoy. So it could be any genre. It just, as far as a story, I want it to be, something that you don't do every day. You don't see every day. We get to go into a world, the Hatfields and McCoys, as a viewer. You don't have to live the Hatfield McCoy life, okay? But you get to experience it,
Right.
real experience. This is what people are really doing and how they're really living. And you get to vicariously live almost, through this camera, you get to live, and through the participants, you get to live that lifestyle without any harm coming to you. And you
Right.
get to, you can process things. So we can tell a story about the Hatfields and McCoys who are having, issues with each other. They're really lobbying lawsuits at each other. They're really like, don't like,
Yeah. It's
and
amazing how the legal system got involved so much throughout the city because it just got so out of control.
yeah, it was, and that was true 100 years ago, but that's a tangent. But these guys are, you get to live what they're going through and
Right.
experience what they're going through and just see a piece of this and process this and process relationships. What does this mean about our communities? How we want to live, how we want to be entrepreneurs, how we want to be a little bit better than that, family down the street. Okay. I mean, let's be honest, right?
Thought that was kind of weird, but this historical fact that was brought in that I think it was Dean who brought it up that in one paper there was I forget what the particular story was that happened between the Hatfield McCoys, but it literally shared the same paper that you have the story about the Hatfield McCoys, and you also had the story about Jack the Ripper.
The
And
newspaper, right?
it was the same time frame.
Yeah.
Same time period.
And the fact that, that
Well,
was
see,
happening, and it was, I think the big point there was that across Europe, the Hatfield McCoy story was making the news, was making the headlines,
right.
and
Yes.
it was a big deal. Everybody was following it. And, you know,
That's why they
okay,
love country roads, John Denver.
that's right. In a lot of ways, we're kind of just, we're kind of, I felt at times a little bit like like I was in the mind of the newspaper guys going down there. In fact, Dean talks about that in his book. Can I plug it real quick? The Feud.
Yes.
Um,
Please, 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 please shut up
the-
again. I want to see it.
okay. So this is his book, The Feud.
Yeah,
Highly, highly recommend it.
I will
Um,
read it. I promise. I promise, Dean, I will read it.
okay, and I'll let him know. And
Again, forget.
but that newspapers, they had these stories, and when I was just like, I felt like if you read his book, there's like some stories about the newspaper guys going down there trying to chase this story because it was real and it was raw and it was happening, and they wanted to know, they wanted to capture this
Yes,
stranger than fiction,
the
stranger than
original reality TV show.
yeah, it's like a reality TV show, and
It
that's what,
was.
I'm just like the the news guy back then,
Dean was from the area, honestly. Is
He
he not native
like
to that area?
he
He
lived,
is.
yeah,
Okay.
he's not native from Logan, West Virginia, but he grew up in that area,
Okay.
in that general area. I
Now,
couldn't
is there any story that you've held on to, or it's history or anything like that, that you haven't seen come to TV or documentary or film, television, whatever, that you would really like to see be made or explained? Because you are
well,
a great storyteller.
I have that story about the Napoleon's treasure, right? And I mean, I can't, that is just, that hurts me that I haven't been able to get anybody to bite on that
I need
show.
it like History Channel because it's such a great story.
Man, it's, I mean, I'm sitting on a real treasure map, and I've seen treasure maps. I've seen what people claim to be maps, and they're bogus, okay? But this
Right.
story is so uncanny about this book that was, an 18th century book, okay? And
Mhm.
inside of the book were codes. And when you follow the codes, it brings you to this like page, and you peel back the page, and there's a freaking treasure map. Okay. And it was not, this was,
I don't care about stories like this.
yeah. And I mean, it's like, and the thing is, like, if they were just leaving a treasure map, like nobody would go through the process of this, of faking a book with all these like weird codes. Okay. It's just feels too much like it feels too much like what you would do if you were panicking. Okay?
Yeah.
Like everything about it just resonates with me. Like if I was in Napoleon's army and I was in possession of this treasure and I needed to get this out to somebody that I love, that I cared about. Like, and how do you do that? You're going to mail them a message, okay?
Yeah.
And you're going to mail them a message, but you know that when you mail the message, that somebody's going to read it. So you can't just put your treasure map, you know, in
Yeah.
a
Code
letter
it.
and
Yeah.
say, "Hey, read this, treasure map." You need to
Right.
know the person, and you need to know that that person is going to open up the book and look in a certain place.
Right.
Okay? And that's what this book did. You had to open it
Yeah.
up and look in a certain place. And when you looked in that certain place, then you started to find, and you could read the codes, and you would find this treasure map. And when you look at the treasure map, I mean, I've located the place in the treasure map. It's legit. Like it makes sense. And not
And
only
yeah,
that, here's the crazy thing. If they made this story up, if this is a fake story, then
great story.
if it was fake, then And this story came, this is, the person who told this to me is 80 some years old. Okay. He's like, I mean, at this point, he's probably 90 if he's still alive. God bless him. When he told me this story, I mean, this came from, 50, 60 years ago. Okay. That he came into possession of this book. And if he was making this up, that history of where Napoleon's army was, nobody knew that at that time. It's only in recent years that it would match up, that the new revised history matches up with where the book says that these people were. So if you're going to fake it, you're not going to fake it in a place that
Right.
Napoleon's army didn't exist. Okay,
That's the
that
great thing about history. It constantly changes. Much
any
like
of your
you
audience
notice and stuff
wants
like
to
that
go
to
on treasure.
authenticate it.
I mean, is it authenticated to the degree that you could possibly authenticate it? But, but here's what I love about it the most is that
Wait for it.
the person who came into possession of this, who came into possession of it from their grandfather. Okay.
Right.
This book existed from their grandfather. Okay. So when I first called him, because I caught wind of the story and I called him and he goes, it's all fake. It's all made up. And I said, okay, I'm just curious. Did you ever go looking for the treasure? And then he started telling me about his treasure. And I go, so if you think it's fake, why did you go on this treasure hunt looking for it?
Right.
And that's actually when he told me, look, it just felt to him like it was legit. And he's a historian, by the way. This person is a historian.
Yeah, good. That's a good
Okay.
fact. Yeah.
More interesting, right? He's an academic historian. And he said he went looking for it. I mean, this is a guy, this is like your, I mean, he's your Harrison Ford, okay? He's your,
Right.
guy is out there hunting, treasures. But he says he was the one that told me about the history fact. He's like, they just revised history and it matches with the location. Yeah, it's a good
You got
story.
history. You got
Now,
treasure
hey,
hunting.
maybe somebody will listen to your podcast and they'll go,
Please
"Hey, we
do. Please
so
do. I mean, I think that is. Were you? Were you recent? You were just in Europe. Were you in Paris? Did you go to the Louvre?
we went to the Orsay
Okay.
Museum.
Okay.
We went to the
Okay.
Louvre.
So,
I've been to the Louvre before, but I did not
okay.
go
They're
there.
going to ask you being in that whole area of Bonaparte that got you re-energized for it.
Well, certainly I thought a lot about him and his stories and yeah, absolutely. In fact, I was very close to the place where they believe that this treasure exists, which was it was difficult being with my family and
Right.
not like, hey guys, let's go on a treasure hunt. But
Where
you know,
years ago, I went on like this whole Knights Templar, and I loved it. You're right in the middle of it. Why not? I wanted to go see the catacombs and there's under barracks and all that
we
stuff.
did
That's
we went to the catacombs. That was pretty cool. That
yeah.
was wild. I mean, there's a lot of dead people down there, let me tell you.
There's a lot of dead people down there.
It's inspiring to me when I do see something that's crafted really well, that tells a really, great story. A documentary uh, recently that uh, that I saw recently that just really inspired me was about these Chinese painters painting Van Gogh replicas. The I think the movie's called China's Van Goghs, and and here are these artists in China. It's a sweat factory where they're just making these. They're trying to like replicate the Van Gogh paintings, and they're selling them for like to some unknown buyer.
Right.
And at some point, he gets it. They're just like the Chinese artists are like they're obsessing over trying to get the colors just right, trying to like manufacture these Van Gogh paintings. And where are they going? The Van Gogh paintings are going to the Netherlands, where outside of the Van Gogh Museum, they're being, they're being sold to the people who have just gone to see the museum. They don't
The
know,
tourist for a high
the
dollar.
tourists are coming in, they're just buying these things. And what are they spending? They're spending $500 or $600 to buy one of these, like, one of these, uh, and knockoffs or replicas, I guess is a better term for it.
Yeah,
And and these Chinese artists are getting $50 for all of their work that they did, for days of painting to make this replica. And
yeah,
but the Chinese artist finally goes to the Van Gogh Museum and he looks at it and he goes, and it dawns on him. He goes, the color's different because he's been looking at a photograph. And
right,
to him, it occurs to him that no matter how perfect he can be, he cannot replicate the Van Gogh painting. And then he realized it's like his whole identity changes. And he's like, oh my God, like, and now he wants to be an original artist, right? Why does he want to be this guy making the knockoffs? And I just thought that was such a, like, that is the type of documentary that I love, because you think you're following a story about one thing and then you realize that this is a guy, I'm not living this guy's lifestyle. I don't know this guy, but
right,
is but it resonated with me as an artist. The power, like the challenge of being an artist and wanting to do something that art.
right.
And I
And
just yeah. Anyway, so there's a documentary that I really love.
I think that's really, I always get interested in a documentary when it starts off and you hear like somebody in the production or somebody that's making it say, when I started making this film or documentary, I never thought it would have gone down this direction. Like, okay, where are we going? I was thinking about, there was this one documentary, it came out a couple years ago. It was called like The Staircase or something like that. Do you know?
The Staircase,
It was
not
about like this woman fell down the stairs and her husband was being accused of the murder and he was saying he didn't, but it was just this crazy twisty turn kind of story. And this, I think it was a French film team, it was like they heard this story in the papers and hit international news, so like, oh my god, what a great story, we got to do a documentary about it. So when they started years ago, it took so many twists and turns, it ended up taking a span of like 11 or 12 years or something like it for them to finish this documentary. He was like, I thought I was going to be like a year making this, and a decade later or more, I'm still on this project,
wow.
and it's like, oh my God, that's insane.
Yeah.
And it was like,
Yeah.
it was great. It was,
Yeah.
it was great. I love that about documentaries and reality TV because you never know, and it's so much better than scripted. You can't make shit up sometimes.
That's right. Sometimes, yeah, absolutely. And I don't, I love a good scripted, you know, movie. It can take you through a journey very, it can do things that we can't do in nonfiction. Like we can't tie everything up in a neat, pretty bow at the end of every episode, okay? At the end of every season. You could do that in fiction. You can make that, you can end everything, and what that allows you to do is to really make it the impact of the story, to really tell you something about human behavior in a way that you can't do that in in nonfiction all the time. But when you get lucky in nonfiction and you do get a chance to create and show that process of changing and that process where you totally unexpected, that totally unexpected flip or twist and turn, and you can tie it up in a neat bow if you're super lucky. I mean, there's nothing like that. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time. I really appreciate it. I love picking your brain because I always love talking to you about shows, document history. So
I always
this
enjoy
has
it
been
too.
a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, this has been fun for me, and I appreciate it. Thanks for having me
Yeah.
on.
Well, thank you so much, Nate. Well, you have a good one. And
Thanks so much for joining us today. Please follow us on Instagram at PollyWineTime. Follow us wherever you get your feed on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, Amazon, iHeart, you name it. Wherever you get your feed, we're there. Thanks so much and have a great day. Bye.